There exists a force that the world cannot measure. It doesn't appear on social media, doesn't make headlines, doesn't seek applause, but it builds empires. Napoleon Hill spent decades studying the greatest winners in history and discovered something unsettling. All of them mastered a forgotten art, the art of winning without being seen. This video reveals the complete method. But before we continue, if you're tired of empty noise, if you understand that true transformation happens away from the spotlight, then subscribe now, because here we unveil the secrets of the mind, faith, and success that the world doesn't want you to know. There is a type of power that operates in the shadows, a power that doesn't announce itself, doesn't justify itself, doesn't parade itself before crowds seeking validation. This power is cultivated in silence, grows in discretion, and manifests when least expected. Napoleon Hill dedicated his life to understanding what separated those who merely dreamed from those who actually achieved, and what he discovered challenges everything modern culture teaches us about success. We live in the age of noise, the age of constant broadcasting, of relentless self-promotion, of announcing every step before taking it. Social media has convinced an entire generation that if something isn't shared, it didn't happen. That if a goal isn't posted, it isn't real. That if progress isn't documented, it doesn't count. But Napoleon Hill taught something radically different. He taught that the greatest achievements in human history were forged not in the spotlight, but in the sacred space of the invisible. Think about this for a moment. Every seed that becomes a mighty tree begins its journey underground, hidden from sight. Every diamond that dazzles was formed in darkness under immense pressure. Every masterpiece that moves humanity was created in the solitude of the artist's studio, away from critics and spectators. There is a universal law at work here, a law that Napoleon Hill called the law of silent incubation. And understanding this law is the difference between those who build something lasting and those who burn out chasing applause. Silence is not absence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. It is the most sophisticated form of spiritual warfare because it protects your vision from the parasites of doubt, comparison, and premature exposure. When you work in silence, you are not hiding from the world. You are shielding your creation from forces that would destroy it before it's ready to withstand scrutiny. Napoleon Hill observed that every person who achieved extraordinary success passed through what he called the desert phase, a period where they were unknown, unrecognized, working without reward or acknowledgement. This wasn't punishment. This was preparation. Because the desert is where character is forged, where faith is tested, where the superficial is burned away and only the essential remains. Those who couldn't bear the silence of the desert never reached their promised land. They gave up when the applause stopped. They quit when no one was watching. They abandoned their vision because their ego needed feeding more than their purpose needed fulfilling. But there's something deeper happening in silence, something that goes beyond strategy or psychology. There's a spiritual dimension that Napoleon Hill understood profoundly. When you choose to work, pray, and win in silence, you're aligning yourself with how the universe actually operates. The most powerful forces in nature are silent. Gravity doesn't announce itself. The rotation of the earth makes no sound. Seeds don't broadcast their growth. Yet these silent forces shape everything. Scripture speaks to this truth repeatedly. In the Gospel of Matthew, we're told to pray in secret, to give in secret, to operate in the hidden places where only the divine sees. Why? Because when you perform for an audience, you've already received your reward, the temporary satisfaction of human approval. But when you work in the unseen, your reward comes from a higher source, and that reward is permanent, unshakable, and far more valuable than any recognition the world could offer. Napoleon Hill taught that the mind is a broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Every time you announce your plans, you're broadcasting your vision into a hostile environment filled with doubt, jealousy, skepticism, and negative energy. These forces are real even if they're invisible. They attach themselves to your dreams and drain them of vitality. Have you ever noticed that when you share a goal prematurely, it somehow loses its power? That the excitement you felt becomes diluted? That the motivation you had starts to fade? This isn't coincidence. This is the energetic law of premature exposure. The world is full of dream killers who don't even know they're killing dreams. They're not malicious. They're simply operating from their own limitations, their own fears, their own failed attempts. When you share your vision with them, they project their limitations onto your possibilities. That's too hard. Nobody does that. What makes you think you're special? These words are poison, not because they're meant to hurt you, but because they plant seeds of doubt in soil that should be reserved only for seeds of faith. Working in silence is an act of self-protection. It's refusing to let your tender seedling of a dream be trampled by the careless footsteps of those who don't understand what you're building. Napoleon Hill emphasized that every great achievement begins with a definite chief aim, a clear, specific, burning desire. But he also taught that this aim must be protected, guarded, kept sacred. You don't throw pearls before swine. You don't expose your most precious treasure to those who cannot recognize its value. There's a fortress being built inside you right now. Every hour you spend working without announcing it is another stone in that fortress. Every morning you wake up and move toward your goal without posting about it is another layer of defense. Every sacrifice you make in private is another reinforcement of your foundation, and when this fortress is complete, when what you've built in secret is finally revealed, nothing and no one will be able to tear it down, because it wasn't built for likes. It wasn't built for comments, it wasn't built for validation. It was built on purpose, prayer, and persistent action in the dark. But here's what most people miss. Silence isn't just about keeping your mouth shut. True silence, the kind that Napoleon Hill pointed toward, is about achieving such mental clarity that external noise cannot penetrate your inner peace. It's about training your mind to be so focused, so disciplined, so aligned with your vision that the opinions of others become irrelevant. This is mastery. This is what separates the amateur from the professional, the dreamer from the achiever, the talker from the doer. Consider the oak tree. It doesn't grow by announcing its intentions. It doesn't pause its growth to check if anyone is watching. It doesn't compete with the tree next to it for attention. It simply grows day after day, year after year, silently converting sunlight and water into strength. And after decades of this silent work, it stands as an undeniable monument to the power of patient, persistent, unseen effort. You are meant to be like that oak, not like the firework that flashes brightly and disappears, like the oak that grows silently and stands for centuries. Napoleon Hill discovered that there are 3 enemies of silent construction, and every person who attempts to build something significant will face all 3. The first enemy is the ego. The ego demands recognition now. It cannot wait. It needs to be seen, praised, validated. The ego says, if I don't tell people what I'm doing, how will they know I'm special? But this is the ego's trap. Because the moment you feed it with premature exposure, it grows stronger and your actual work grows weaker. You spend more time crafting the announcement than doing the actual work. You become more invested in appearing successful than in becoming successful. The second enemy is urgency. We live in an instant gratification culture that has poisoned our understanding of timing. Everyone wants the harvest before planting the seed. Everyone wants the promotion before mastering the position. Everyone wants to be celebrated before they've actually accomplished anything worth celebrating. But Napoleon Hill taught that there are no shortcuts to genuine achievement. There is only the law of cause and effect, sowing and reaping, action and consequence. And this law operates on its own timeline, not yours. When you respect the silence, you're respecting the natural timing of growth. You're trusting that the universe knows when your harvest is ready, even if you don't. The third enemy is the need for external validation. This is perhaps the most dangerous because it's so subtle. It masquerades as connection, as sharing, as community. But in truth, it's a form of weakness. When you need others to affirm your path, you're giving them power over your destiny. You're making your internal compass dependent on external weather. Napoleon Hill was clear about this. The successful person develops such unshakable faith in their vision that outside opinions become noise, not guidance. They know where they're going, they know why they're going there, and they don't need a cheering section to validate each step. So how do you overcome these three enemies? How do you develop the strength to work, pray, and win in silence when everything in culture screams at you to do the opposite? Napoleon Hill provided a framework, and it begins with understanding that silence is a spiritual practice, not just a tactic. When you choose silence, you're choosing faith over fear. You're choosing substance over show. You're choosing depth over display. Prayer in silence is where the deepest transformation occurs. Not the performative prayer done for others to witness, not the loud declarations meant to convince yourself and others of your faith, but the quiet, honest conversation between you and the divine that happens when no one else is around. This is where Napoleon Hill saw the true power of spiritual practice meeting mental discipline. Because when you pray in silence, you're not performing, you're connecting. You're not seeking approval, you're seeking alignment. You're not asking the universe to change its laws for you. You're asking for the wisdom to work with those laws effectively. There's a Bible verse that captures this perfectly. Even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. Proverbs 17, verse 28. Think about the profound truth embedded in this ancient wisdom. Silence protects you from exposing your ignorance, your immaturity, your incomplete understanding. But more than that, silence gives you space to actually become wise rather than just appearing wise. When you stop talking and start observing, listening, learning, you accumulate real knowledge. When you stop broadcasting and start building, you accumulate real results. Napoleon Hill emphasized that thoughts are things, that every idea you hold in your mind with emotional intensity and clear focus tends to materialize in physical reality. But here's the key. This manifestation process requires protection. It requires incubation. Just as a photographer must develop film in a darkroom, your vision must be developed in the darkness of silence before it can be exposed to light without being destroyed. Every time you prematurely share your plan, you interrupt the development process. You let light into the darkroom. And what could have been a clear, powerful image becomes foggy, distorted, weakened. The people who changed the world understood this instinctively. They didn't announce their intentions. They demonstrated their results. They didn't argue about their vision. They executed it. They didn't defend their path. They walked it. And when the world finally saw what they had built in silence, there was nothing to debate, nothing to criticize, nothing to tear down, because the work spoke for itself. Right now, at this very moment, you have a choice. You can continue living in the culture of noise, posting every intention, sharing every goal, seeking validation for every step. Or you can step into the ancient wisdom that Napoleon Hill spent his life teaching. You can begin working in silence. You can make your prayer life a private, sacred practice rather than a public performance. You can commit to winning in a way that doesn't require announcement, doesn't need applause, doesn't seek recognition. This is not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest disciplines you'll ever undertake, because silence forces you to confront yourself without the distraction of other people's opinions. Silence makes you face your own doubts without the comfort of external reassurance. Silence requires you to keep going when no one is watching, cheering, or caring. But this is exactly why it's powerful. Because when you can motivate yourself, believe in yourself, and persist without any external reward, you've tapped into a source of strength that can never be taken from you. Napoleon Hill called this definiteness of purpose. It's knowing so clearly what you want and why you want it that nothing and no one can talk you out of it. It's having such burning desire that silence doesn't feel like deprivation. It feels like protection. You're not hiding your dream from the world. You're shielding it from forces that would kill it before it has a chance to grow strong enough to withstand exposure. There is a science to silence that most people never discover. Napoleon Hill understood that working in silence isn't merely about keeping your plans private. It's about creating an energetic container where your vision can develop without interference. Think of it like a greenhouse. A seed can grow in the open field, yes, but it grows faster, stronger, and more reliably when protected from harsh weather, predators, and premature exposure. Your dreams require the same protection. When you announce your intentions, you create energetic debt. You've made a promise to the world before making a promise to yourself. Now you're working not from pure desire, but from the pressure of external expectation. Napoleon Hill taught that the mind performs best when it's free from the burden of justification. When no one knows what you're building, you're free to experiment, to fail, to adjust course without the weight of others' judgments. This freedom is where innovation happens. This freedom is where breakthroughs occur. But there's something even more profound happening beneath the surface. Every time you speak about a goal, your brain experiences a small dopamine release, the same neurochemical reward you'd get from actually achieving that goal. Scientists have studied this phenomenon. When you tell someone about your plan to lose weight, to start a business, to write a book, your brain registers a micro-satisfaction. It mistakes the announcement for accomplishment, and in that moment, your motivation to actually do the work decreases. You've already received the social reward. The hunger that should drive you forward has been partially satisfied by the act of telling. This is why Napoleon Hill emphasized that successful people maintain what he called a quiet confidence. They don't need to convince others because they've already convinced themselves. They don't need to defend their vision because they're too busy executing it. They understand that every ounce of energy spent explaining is energy not spent achieving. And achievement is the only proof that ultimately matters. Let's talk about the spiritual physics of this principle, because Napoleon Hill recognized that success isn't just mental or physical, it's deeply spiritual. There exists what ancient wisdom traditions called the law of gestation. Everything has a natural time of development. A human baby requires 9 months. An oak tree takes decades. A diamond takes millions of years. You cannot rush these processes without destroying the outcome. When you work in silence, you're honoring the law of gestation. You're saying to the universe that I trust your timing. I will do my part faithfully, and I will wait patiently for the harvest. This is faith in its purest form, not the faith that demands immediate results. Not the faith that needs constant signs and wonders, but the faith that keeps planting, keeps watering, keeps tending the garden, even when nothing is visible above ground. Because what's happening beneath the surface is always more important than what's visible on top. The roots determine the fruit, and roots grow in darkness, in silence, in the hidden places where no one celebrates their progress. Napoleon Hill taught that prayer and work are not separate activities, they're two expressions of the same force. When you pray, you're aligning your mental frequency with the infinite intelligence of the universe. When you work, you're giving physical form to that alignment. Prayer without work is wishful thinking. Work without prayer is exhausting struggle. But when you combine the two in silence, you create what Hill called applied faith, the most powerful force available to human beings. Now here's where most people stumble. They understand the concept of working in silence intellectually, but they don't understand how to actually implement it. They don't know what to do with the discomfort that comes when no one is watching, no one is cheering, no one is acknowledging their effort. This discomfort is not a sign you're on the wrong path. This discomfort is the price of admission to greatness. It's the fire that burns away everything in you that isn't essential. Napoleon Hill described this as the season of testing. Every person who attempts something significant will face this season. It's the time when enthusiasm fades, when the initial excitement wears off, when the reality of hard work without reward sets in. This is where most people quit. They return to the noise, to the validation seeking, to the public performance of progress. Because silence is hard, anonymity is uncomfortable, working without applause feels like punishment when you've been conditioned to need constant affirmation. But here's the truth that Napoleon Hill discovered through studying the most successful individuals in history. The people who endure the season of testing emerge transformed. They develop what he called persistence, not just the ability to keep going, but the unshakable conviction that their success is inevitable. They no longer hope they'll succeed. They know they will, because they've proven to themselves that they don't need external motivation. They've tapped into something deeper, something permanent, something that can't be taken away by criticism, doubt, or delay. Prayer in silence takes on a different character when you truly understand its power. It's not about asking for things. It's not about begging the universe to change its laws. Prayer in silence is about programming your subconscious mind with the frequency of your desired reality. Napoleon Hill called this auto-suggestion, the process of influencing your own subconscious through deliberate, repeated mental impressions. When you pray in silence, away from the judgment and interruption of others, you're giving these impressions maximum impact. Consider how Jesus taught this principle. When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. This isn't just spiritual advice, it's practical instruction in the science of mental programming. The closed door represents protection from external interference. The unseen Father represents the subconscious mind, the infinite intelligence, the creative power that operates beneath conscious awareness. And the promise of reward isn't about divine favoritism, it's about natural law. What you cultivate in secret grows strong. What you expose prematurely grows weak. There's a reason why every spiritual tradition emphasizes periods of solitude, fasting, silence, and retreat. These practices aren't about punishment or deprivation, they're about creating the conditions for transformation. When you remove the noise of the world, you can finally hear the whisper of your own soul. When you stop performing for others, you can finally discover who you actually are. When you cease defending your path, you can finally walk it with full conviction. Napoleon Hill observed that successful people share a common trait. They all developed the ability to think independently. They didn't need consensus. They didn't need approval. They didn't need permission. They saw what others couldn't see, believed what others wouldn't believe, and did what others were too afraid to do. And this independence of thought was forged in silence. It was cultivated in the lonely hours when they had only themselves and their vision for company. This is why working in silence is also protection from comparison. When you're building in secret, you're not measuring your progress against others. You're not looking at someone else's highlight reel and feeling inadequate. You're not getting discouraged by how far ahead others seem to be. You're on your own timeline, running your own race, building your own unique contribution. Comparison is the death of creativity and the enemy of joy. Silence shields you from this poison. But let's address the fear that arises here. Many people resist working in silence because they're afraid they'll be forgotten. They're afraid that if they're not constantly visible, constantly posting, constantly reminding people of their existence, they'll become irrelevant. This fear reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of value. Real value doesn't need to announce itself. A lighthouse doesn't run around the island advertising its light. It simply shines, and those who need it find it. When you're genuinely building something valuable, when you're actually developing a skill worth having, or creating something worth experiencing, the world will find you. Quality always rises. Excellence always attracts attention. You don't need to chase recognition. You need to become worthy of it. Napoleon Hill emphasized that the universe responds to definiteness of purpose combined with persistent action. Notice both elements. It's not enough to have clarity without action. And it's not enough to have action without clarity. You need both. And silence provides the optimal environment for both. In silence, your purpose becomes crystallized because there's no one to dilute it with their opinions. In silence, your action becomes powerful because all your energy flows in one direction rather than being scattered in self-promotion. There are 3 types of silence, and only one leads to victory. The first is the silence of fear, when you don't share because you're afraid of being judged, criticized, or rejected. This silence is weak. It's avoidance, not strategy. The second is the silence of arrogance, when you don't share because you think you're better than others, because you want to shock them later with your success. This silence is toxic. It's ego masquerading as discipline. The third is the silence of wisdom, when you don't share because you understand that your vision is sacred, that your energy is precious, that your focus is your most valuable asset. This is the silence that Napoleon Hill taught. This is the silence that builds empires. How do you know which type of silence you're practicing? Simple. Check your internal state. The silence of fear feels constricting, anxious, heavy. The silence of arrogance feels superior, judgmental, separate. But the silence of wisdom feels peaceful, purposeful, powerful. It's not hiding, it's protecting, it's not avoiding, it's focusing. It's not about them, it's about your commitment to your own transformation. Napoleon Hill discovered that there's a direct relationship between mental clarity and environmental quiet. The more noise in your external world, the more chaos in your internal world. This isn't just metaphorical, it's measurable. Your brain processes every conversation, every notification, every piece of input as a task requiring mental energy. When you consciously reduce external noise, you free up massive amounts of cognitive power for what actually matters. Working in silence isn't about being antisocial, it's about being strategic with your most limited resource, attention. Think about the monks who take vows of silence. They're not punishing themselves, they're not avoiding the world. They're deliberately creating conditions for enlightenment. They understand that words are powerful, and silence is more powerful still. In the absence of speech, awareness deepens. In the absence of distraction, presence intensifies. In the absence of performance, authenticity emerges. You don't need to become a monk, but you do need to understand the principle they're applying. Silence is a technology for transformation. Here's what happens when you commit to working and praying in silence for an extended period. The first few weeks are difficult. Your ego protests. Your need for validation screams. Every small win feels incomplete without someone to witness it. But if you persist through this discomfort, something remarkable happens. You begin to derive satisfaction from the work itself rather than from the recognition it brings. You start to enjoy the process rather than constantly fixating on the outcome. You discover that you're enough, that your effort matters even if no one sees it, that your growth is valid even if it's not documented. This internal shift is what Napoleon Hill called transmutation of energy. You're redirecting the energy you use to spend seeking approval into the actual work of becoming excellent. You're converting the need for external validation into internal conviction, and this creates a compounding effect. The stronger your internal foundation becomes, the less you need from the outside world. And the less you need from the outside world, the more focused and effective your work becomes. You enter a virtuous cycle where silence begets strength, and strength begets more silence, and this upward spiral continues until you've become unrecognizable from who you were when you started. But prayer in silence requires even more discipline than work in silence, because prayer involves vulnerability. It's easier to work without sharing than it is to pray without performing. Many people use prayer as a form of spiritual signaling, a way to demonstrate their faith to others. They pray loudly in groups. They post about their prayer life online. They make sure others know how devoted they are. But Napoleon Hill taught that this type of prayer is almost useless. It's directed at the wrong audience. True prayer isn't about impressing people. It's about impressing upon your subconscious mind the reality you intend to create. When you pray in silence, you're having an honest conversation with the universe about what you truly desire. No pretense, no performance, no need to sound holy or wise or impressive. Just raw honesty about what you want and why you want it. This honesty is crucial because your subconscious mind cannot be fooled by pretty words or noble-sounding intentions. It responds only to emotional truth. If you say you want success but you're really driven by fear of poverty, your subconscious will create more situations that generate fear. If you say you want love but you're really seeking validation, your subconscious will create relationships that leave you feeling empty. Prayer in silence allows you to strip away the lies you tell yourself and others. It forces you to confront your true motivations. And once you're clear about what you actually want, not what you think you should want, you can begin the process of aligning your conscious desires with your subconscious programming. Napoleon Hill spent years teaching this principle. He called it definiteness of purpose, but it could just as easily be called prayer aligned with truth. The reward for working and praying in silence isn't just external success. The deeper reward is internal transformation. You become someone who doesn't need constant affirmation to feel worthy. You become someone who can delay gratification without resentment. You become someone who measures success by character rather than by applause. And this transformation is permanent. Once you've tasted the power of silence, once you've experienced the depth of focus it provides, you can never fully return to the shallow satisfaction of public performance. Victory in silence is the ultimate test of maturity. Anyone can celebrate loudly when they win. Anyone can announce their achievements, post their trophies, broadcast their success. But it takes profound wisdom to win and remain quiet, to achieve something significant and resist the urge to parade it before the world. This restraint, this self-control, is what separates temporary winners from permanent champions. Napoleon Hill observed that there are two kinds of success. The first is success that needs witnesses. It requires validation, applause, recognition. Without these external confirmations, it feels hollow. The person who achieves this type of success is constantly anxious, constantly seeking the next dose of approval to feel worthy. The second type is success that stands alone. It doesn't need announcement because it's rooted in genuine accomplishment, in character transformation, in becoming someone of real value. This is the success that Napoleon Hill spent his life teaching people to pursue. When you win in silence, you're making a declaration to the universe. I am not doing this for them. I am doing this for me and for the purpose I was created to fulfill. This declaration is power, because the moment you stop performing for an audience, you stop being controlled by their opinions. You stop adjusting your path based on their reactions. You stop limiting your potential to match their expectations. You become free. But winning in silence is difficult, precisely because we're hardwired for social connection. We want to share our joy. We want others to celebrate with us. There's nothing wrong with this desire. It's human. The problem arises when this desire becomes a need, when you cannot feel satisfied with your achievement unless others validate it, when your victory only counts if it's witnessed and applauded. This dependency is a prison. And the key to that prison is learning to derive your sense of accomplishment from internal standards rather than external reactions. Napoleon Hill taught that true success is measured by the person you become, not by the possessions you accumulate or the recognition you receive. When you win in silence, you're forced to evaluate your success based on internal criteria. Did you grow? Did you overcome something that once defeated you? Did you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you believed? These questions matter more than any trophy, any title, any public acknowledgement, because these are the measures of real transformation. Consider what happens when someone achieves success and immediately broadcasts it to the world. First, they invite jealousy. Human nature is such that many people struggle with others' success. Not because they're evil, but because it highlights their own lack of progress. Your announcement becomes a mirror reflecting their stagnation, and mirrors make people uncomfortable. Second, they invite scrutiny. Now everyone is watching, waiting for you to fail, to prove that your success was luck or temporary. Third, they create pressure. Having announced your victory, you must now maintain the appearance of victory, even if internally you're struggling. The performance becomes more important than the reality. But when you win in silence, none of these dynamics apply. There's no jealousy to manage because no one knows. There's no scrutiny to endure because you're not being watched. There's no pressure to maintain appearances because you haven't created any expectations. You're free to simply be, to continue growing, to build upon your success without the weight of public perception. This freedom is invaluable. Napoleon Hill discovered that the most sustainable success comes from what he called the compound effect of invisible efforts. It's not the one big announcement that changes your life. It's the 1,000 small decisions made in private, the daily disciplines maintained when no one is watching, the character built in moments that will never make it to social media. These invisible efforts compound over time, creating results so substantial that they cannot be denied or diminished by critics. There's a spiritual principle at work here that ancient wisdom understood clearly. The Bible speaks of it in the book of Ecclesiastes. There is a time for everything under heaven, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to be silent and a time to speak. The person who wins in silence understands timing. They know that premature celebration can abort the full manifestation of their blessing. They know that some victories need time to solidify before they can withstand public exposure. Think of it like concrete. When concrete is first poured, it looks complete. But if you walk on it too soon, you'll leave permanent damage. It needs time to cure, to harden, to reach its full strength. Your victories are the same. They need time to cure in the privacy of your life before they're ready for public interaction. When you win in silence, you're giving your success time to solidify, to become unshakable, to reach the point where no amount of criticism or doubt can crack its foundation. Napoleon Hill emphasized that the mind operates through habit patterns. When you make it a habit to announce every win, you train your mind to seek external validation as the measure of success. But when you make it a habit to win in silence, you train your mind to derive satisfaction from the achievement itself, from the knowledge that you set a goal and accomplished it, regardless of who knows. This internal satisfaction is more addictive than any applause because it's always available, never dependent on others, and grows stronger with each private victory. Here's the paradox that most people miss. When you stop seeking recognition, you often receive more of it. When you stop performing your success, people start noticing your substance. There's something magnetic about a person who is clearly winning, but doesn't need to talk about it. Their confidence isn't loud or boastful. It's quiet and certain. They carry themselves differently. They speak differently. There's a depth to them that shallow achievers lack, and people are drawn to this depth, even if they can't articulate why. This is because winning in silence produces a different kind of energy. It's not the frantic, desperate energy of someone trying to prove their worth. It's the calm, assured energy of someone who knows their worth and doesn't need external confirmation. Napoleon Hill called this attractive energy, the magnetic quality that draws opportunities, relationships, and resources toward you without effort. You become a lighthouse rather than a firework, steady, reliable, impossible to ignore. But let's be practical. How do you actually implement this wisdom? How do you work, pray, and win in silence when everything in modern culture pushes you toward constant sharing? Napoleon Hill provided a framework, though he didn't call it by this name. I call it the 3 laws of the invisible. These are practical principles you can apply immediately to transform your relationship with success and silence. The first law is the law of protected gestation. Just as a mother protects her unborn child from harm, you must protect your goals, dreams, and victories during their development phase. This means being selective about who you share with. Not everyone deserves access to your vision. Not everyone has earned the right to know what you're building. Create a tight circle of trusted advisors, people who have demonstrated wisdom, discretion, and genuine support. Share with them when you need guidance. But keep the majority of humanity outside this circle until your success has reached maturity. How do you know when something has reached maturity? When it can withstand criticism without crumbling. When it's so solidified in reality that doubt cannot undo it. When you've moved from hoping it will work to knowing it has worked. At that point, if you choose to share, the sharing is celebration rather than seeking. You're not asking for validation, you're offering inspiration. This is the difference between premature exposure and timely revelation. The second law is the law of concentrated energy. Every ounce of energy you spend explaining, justifying, or promoting your plans is energy not spent executing them. Napoleon Hill taught that the mind has a finite amount of creative energy each day. Successful people learn to concentrate this energy on productive action rather than dissipating it through talk. This requires discipline. When someone asks what you're working on, resist the urge to elaborate. Give a brief, vague answer and redirect the conversation, not because you're being secretive for its own sake, but because you understand that your words carry power, and you're choosing to direct that power toward manifestation rather than explanation. Think of your mind like a battery. Every time you talk about your goals, you drain a little charge. Every time you defend your choices, you lose a little power. Every time you seek validation, you weaken your internal conviction. But when you keep your plans close, when you let your actions speak instead of your words, you maintain full charge. You have maximum energy available for the actual work of achievement. This is practical spirituality, understanding that everything is energy and managing that energy strategically. The third law is the law of divine timing. This is perhaps the most challenging law because it requires surrender. It requires trusting that the universe has a perfect timeline for the revelation of your success, and that timeline might not match your preferences. Napoleon Hill taught that infinite intelligence operates with precision beyond human understanding. When you align yourself with this intelligence through silent work and prayer, you're essentially saying, "I will do my part faithfully, and I trust you to handle the timing of my harvest." This doesn't mean passive waiting. It means active preparation without anxious forcing. It means working diligently while remaining unattached to specific timelines. Some harvests come quickly, others take years or even decades. The farmer who plants corn expects harvest in a few months. The farmer who plants an apple orchard knows he won't taste fruit for several years. Both are farming, but the timelines differ. Your vision might be corn, or it might be an orchard. Don't judge your progress by someone else's timeline. Trust the law of divine timing. When you operate according to these three laws, something remarkable happens. You stop living in chronic anxiety about what others think. You stop wasting energy on impression management. You stop making decisions based on how they'll look, rather than whether they serve your purpose. You become internally directed rather than externally controlled. And this internal direction is the foundation of all lasting achievement. Napoleon Hill studied hundreds of successful people and found this pattern consistently. They all went through a period of obscurity where they worked without recognition, prayed without acknowledgement, and won small victories that no one celebrated. This period wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It was the universe's way of ensuring they could handle the weight of public success. Because success is heavy. Fame is burdensome. Recognition comes with responsibility. If you haven't developed the strength to win in silence, you won't have the strength to win in the spotlight. Consider the example of bamboo. When bamboo is planted, it shows no visible growth for the first 5 years, nothing above ground. A casual observer would think the seed died or the planting failed. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary is happening. The bamboo is developing a massive root system, spreading underground, building the foundation for what's coming. Then, in the 6th year, the bamboo shoots up 90 feet in just 6 weeks. This explosive growth is only possible because of the silent development that preceded it. You are the bamboo. Right now, in your season of silence, roots are developing, character is forming, strength is accumulating, skills are compounding. And when your time comes, when the universe decides you're ready, your growth will be so rapid and so substantial that people will call it overnight success. They won't see the 5 years of silence. They won't know about the invisible work, and that's fine. You're not doing this for their understanding. You're doing it for your destiny. The victory of silence is not the absence of achievement. It's the presence of such profound achievement that it speaks for itself. It's becoming so excellent that your work does your talking. It's developing such undeniable skill that opportunities seek you rather than you seeking them. It's building such genuine value that recognition becomes inevitable rather than forced. Napoleon Hill's ultimate teaching on this subject can be summarized in one principle. Success is attracted by the person you become, not pursued through the image you project. When you work in silence, you become disciplined. When you pray in silence, you become connected. When you win in silence, you become mature. And the person who embodies discipline, connection, and maturity becomes a magnet for every good thing the universe has to offer. Now we arrive at the most practical question. How do you know if you're truly working, praying, and winning in silence, or if you're simply hiding from the world? This distinction is crucial because there's a counterfeit version of silence that masquerades as wisdom but is actually fear in disguise. Napoleon Hill was clear about this. Silence must come from strength, not weakness. It must be a choice, not a default. It must be strategic, not avoidant. The way to discern the difference is through your internal state. True silence, the kind that Napoleon Hill advocated, produces a sense of peace and purpose. You're not anxious about what others think because you're too focused on what you're building. You're not resentful about lack of recognition because you're deriving satisfaction from the work itself. You're not jealous of others' public success because you understand that your season is different, and different doesn't mean inferior. This peace is the signature of authentic silence. But false silence produces agitation. You're constantly checking to see if anyone has noticed you. You're secretly hoping for recognition while pretending not to care. You're building resentment toward those who are celebrated while you remain unknown. This is not the silence of wisdom. This is the silence of wounded ego. And it will not produce the results you seek because it's rooted in fear rather than faith. Napoleon Hill taught that faith and fear cannot coexist in the same mind at the same time. When you're operating in true silence, faith dominates. You believe so deeply in your vision that external validation becomes irrelevant. But when false silence grips you, fear dominates. You're terrified of being seen because you're not confident in what you've built. You're hiding rather than protecting. The remedy is not to force yourself into the spotlight prematurely. The remedy is to continue working until your faith exceeds your fear, until what you've created is substantial enough to stand on its own merit. Let me give you practical signs that you're on the right path. First, you feel energized by your work, rather than drained by the need for validation. You wake up excited about the progress you're making, not anxious about whether anyone noticed. Second, you're able to celebrate others' success genuinely without feeling diminished. Their victory doesn't threaten yours because you understand that abundance flows to those who are ready, and your readiness is being cultivated in the silence. Third, you have moments of profound clarity where you know beyond doubt that you're exactly where you need to be. These moments are confirmations from the universe that your silent season is productive, not wasted. Napoleon Hill emphasized that every person who achieves anything significant will face what he called the dark night of the soul. This is a period where everything you've built seems futile, where the silence feels oppressive rather than protective, where you question whether your sacrifice has any meaning. This dark night is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you're close to breakthrough. It's the final test before the harvest. If you can maintain your commitment during this dark night, if you can continue working, praying, and trusting when every visible sign suggests futility, you will emerge with a kind of faith that cannot be shaken by any future circumstance. The dark night teaches you that your commitment must be unconditional. Not, I'll work in silence if it produces results quickly. Not, I'll pray in secret as long as I feel spiritual. Not, I'll win quietly unless someone more talented comes along. But I will work, pray, and win in silence because this is who I've chosen to become regardless of outcomes, timelines, or comparisons. This unconditional commitment is what Napoleon Hill meant by definiteness of purpose. It's not goal setting, it's identity formation. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What about when you do achieve something? What about when the victory is real, substantial, undeniable? Are you supposed to hide it forever? This is where nuance matters. Napoleon Hill never taught that success should remain permanently invisible. He taught that success should be revealed at the right time, in the right way, for the right reasons. There's a vast difference between strategic revelation and desperate proclamation. When your success has matured, when it's so solid that criticism cannot diminish it, when you've internalized the lessons it taught you, then you can share. But even then, your sharing should serve a purpose beyond ego gratification. Perhaps you share to inspire others who are in the season you've just emerged from. Perhaps you share to teach principles that could shorten someone else's learning curve. Perhaps you share because authentic connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability includes sharing both struggles and victories. These are healthy reasons for revelation. But if you're sharing to prove something, to silence critics, to feel superior, to generate envy, these motivations poison the blessing. Napoleon Hill observed that many people achieve success only to lose it shortly after, and the reason is almost always the same. They couldn't handle the success with maturity. They let ego take over. They forgot the principles that brought them victory. They abandoned the silence that protected their growth. And without that foundation, the success crumbled. Here's a powerful practice that Napoleon Hill recommended, though he described it differently. I call it The gratitude inventory. At the end of each day before you sleep, review your day in silence. Not to judge yourself, but to acknowledge. What did you build today that no one saw? What discipline did you maintain that no one applauded? What temptation to seek validation did you resist? What moment of doubt did you overcome through faith? Write these down if you wish, or simply hold them in your mind. This practice does two things. It trains your mind to find satisfaction in invisible progress, and it creates a record of faithfulness that you can review when doubt attacks. Because doubt will attack. On the days when silence feels like obscurity, when working without recognition feels like punishment, when you wonder if anyone will ever see what you've sacrificed, return to your gratitude inventory. Remind yourself of the countless victories no one witnessed. Remind yourself that the universe sees everything, even if people see nothing. Remind yourself that you're not building a monument to your ego. You're building a life of meaning. And meaning doesn't require audience. Napoleon Hill discovered that the human mind has an incredible capacity for self-deception. We can convince ourselves we're being patient when we're actually being passive. We can convince ourselves we're being humble when we're actually being fearful. We can convince ourselves we're trusting divine timing when we're actually avoiding responsibility. This is why periodic honest self-examination is crucial. Ask yourself, am I working in silence because I'm protecting my vision, or because I'm afraid of failure? Am I praying in silence because I'm seeking genuine connection, or because I'm performing for myself? Am I winning in silence because I'm mature, or because I'm resentful? These questions aren't meant to create guilt, they're meant to create clarity. Because without clarity, you can spend years in false silence and wonder why the results never come. True silence produces real results. It might take longer than you hoped. It might look different than you imagined. But it always produces transformation, both internal and external. If you're not seeing any transformation, the problem isn't the principle, it's the application. Let's talk about prayer in silence one more time, because this is where the deepest power resides. Napoleon Hill taught that prayer is not about changing the universe's mind. It's about aligning your mind with the universe's principles. When you pray in silence, you're not begging for special treatment. You're declaring your intention to work with natural law rather than against it. You're affirming that you trust the process, that you're willing to do your part, that you're open to receiving when the timing is right. There's a specific form of silent prayer that Napoleon Hill practiced and taught, though he called it by different names. It goes like this. Find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly until your mind settles. Then, with as much emotional intensity as you can generate, visualize your desired outcome as if it's already real. Don't beg for it to happen. Don't hope it might happen. See it, feel it, experience it as present reality. Hold this vision for as long as you can maintain the emotional intensity, then release it completely. Trust that the universe has received your request and is orchestrating its fulfillment. Do this daily in silence without telling anyone. This is not wishful thinking. This is impressing your subconscious mind with the pattern of your intended reality. Your subconscious cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experience and actual experience. When you consistently impress it with images of success, it begins to reorganize your thoughts, habits, and actions to align with that success. This is the practical mechanism behind what people call manifestation. It's not magic. It's psychology meeting spirituality. But here's the critical piece. This prayer must be accompanied by corresponding action. You cannot pray for success and then sit on your couch waiting for it to appear. You cannot visualize wealth and then refuse to work. You cannot affirm health and then abuse your body. Prayer sets the direction. Work provides the vehicle. Silence protects the journey. All three are necessary. Napoleon Hill's ultimate wisdom on this subject is simple but profound. Become the person who deserves the success you desire, and the success will find you. This is what working, praying, and winning in silence actually accomplishes. It transforms you from someone who needs success to validate their worth into someone whose worth attracts success naturally, from someone who chases recognition into someone who generates value, from someone who performs for applause into someone who creates from purpose. This transformation cannot happen in the noise. It requires the silence. The silence is not your enemy, it's your training ground. It's where your character is forged, where your faith is tested, where your purpose is clarified. Every moment you spend in this training ground, you're becoming stronger, wiser, more capable. And when your moment arrives, and it will arrive, you'll be ready. Not just ready to handle success, but ready to steward it responsibly, to build upon it sustainably, to use it for something beyond yourself. There's a beautiful truth that Napoleon Hill understood deeply. The universe has no favorites, but it does have laws. And those who learn to work with those laws will always outperform those who work against them. The law of silence is one of those fundamental laws. It says that what is protected grows strong. What is exposed prematurely grows weak. What is nurtured in secret develops deep roots. What is paraded for approval develops shallow foundations. You now have a choice before you. You can return to the culture of noise, of constant broadcasting, of seeking validation for every step. That path is easier in the short term. It provides immediate gratification, quick hits of dopamine, the illusion of progress. Or you can commit to the path of silence, the path where no one cheers your daily discipline, where no one witnesses your private victories, where no one acknowledges your sacrifices. This path is harder in the short term, but it's the only path that leads to sustainable, meaningful, transformative success. The question isn't whether you're capable of this path. The question is whether you're willing. Capability is universal. We all have the same fundamental capacity for discipline, faith, and persistence, but willingness is individual. It requires a decision that no one can make for you. A decision to value substance over show, depth over display, becoming over appearing. If you're reading these words right now, it's not coincidence. Something in you resonates with this message. Something in you knows that the noise of modern life is drowning out your ability to hear your own soul's calling. Something in you is tired of performing and ready to start building. That something is the part of you that Napoleon Hill called infinite intelligence, the divine spark within you that knows your true potential and is calling you toward it. Listen to that voice. It speaks in whispers, not shouts. It communicates through intuition, not argument. It guides through peace, not anxiety. And it's been trying to tell you something important. You are meant for more than the shallow victories of public approval. You are meant to build something that outlasts you, that serves something beyond you, that comes from the deepest truth within you. But you cannot build that in the noise. You can only build it in the silence. So here is your invitation. Starting today, choose one goal that matters deeply to you. One vision that stirs your soul. One dream that feels too important to abandon. And make a commitment. You will pursue this goal in silence. You won't announce it on social media. You won't seek validation from friends. You won't measure your progress by others' reactions. You will work quietly, pray privately, and trust completely. Give yourself at least 90 days of this discipline. 3 months of pure, protected, purposeful silence. At the end of those 90 days, evaluate. How has your relationship with this goal changed? How has your internal state shifted? What have you accomplished that no one knows about? What have you learned about yourself in the absence of external feedback? I promise you this. If you can maintain true silence for 90 days, you will emerge transformed. Not because the silence is magical, but because it creates the conditions for transformation that noise makes impossible. Napoleon Hill spent his entire life studying success, and this was his conclusion. Success is not a destination you reach, it's a person you become. And the person you become is shaped by the choices you make when no one is watching. Work in silence. Pray in silence. Win in silence. Not because you're hiding from the world, but because you're building something the world isn't ready to see yet. Not because you're afraid of judgment, but because you're protecting something too precious to be exposed prematurely. Not because you lack confidence, but because you possess the highest form of confidence, faith in your process, trust in your purpose, certainty in your ultimate victory. The silent path is the ancient path, It's the path walked by prophets, sages, and every person who ever created something that mattered. The world will try to pull you back into noise. Resist. Your destiny is being forged in the silence. Your character is being shaped in the unseen. Your victory is being prepared in the invisible. And when the time is right, when you've been fully prepared, when what you've built can withstand any storm, the universe will reveal what you've become. And that revelation will be so undeniable, so substantial, so powerful, that no critic will be able to diminish it, no doubter will be able to deny it, no force will be able to destroy it. This is the promise of working, praying, and winning in silence. This is the wisdom of Napoleon Hill. This is your invitation to a life of depth, meaning, and true success. The silence is not the end of your journey, it's the beginning of your true power. You now know the method. Work without announcing, pray without performing, win without boasting. The world will notice, but only when you're ready. And when that moment comes, your light won't come from ego. It will come from the certainty of someone who was forged in the invisible. If this message touched something deep within you, leave your Amen in the comments. Share this video with someone who is building in silence. And if you're ready to transform faith into strategy and silence into victory, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here we don't follow the crowd. We create the path that few have the courage to walk.